Okay, we're going to do a little compare and contrast right now. Okay. Um, First of all, we have a development in the January 6th Capitol attack. Okay. Today, charges were filed against 6 Oath Keepers. The Oath Keepers are a far-right militia group. I actually have seen their stickers on trucks, driving down Highway 101 in my area here on the Central Coast. They're all over the country. There's chapters everywhere. But it's a far-right militia group. And like, I think there's some ties to Christian nationalism as well as white nationalism. But Roger Stone was using Oath Keepers as his personal security at the speech before the attack on the Capitol. Roger Stone, the self-described dirty trickster who Trump pardoned after he was indicted for lying to the FBI and charged, convicted. I can't remember if he was imprisoned for lying about what he was saying to WikiLeaks about the Podesta emails. If you guys don't remember, the Podesta emails dropped from WikiLeaks within 32 minutes, I believe, of the grab him by the pussy tape. And it was Roger Stone who was pressuring, who called up Assange to do that. Also, Roger Stone was involved with the Brooks Brothers riot in the year 2000, helping attack the vote count, the recount in Florida. So the right wing, they've done their coups before. The Republicans have seized power before. In 2000, it came down to Florida. Joe Biden won so handily, flipping even red states like Georgia and Arizona, that we saw basically there was no way to do this except but for January 6th, right? All their legal means failed terribly. January 6th was the day the official count of the Electoral College votes. So Roger Stone is hanging out with Oath Keepers, and now 6 Oath Keepers have been indicted, served charges of conspiracy, adding more defendants to the Capitol riot. So U.S. authorities on Friday alleged a broader conspiracy by Oath Keepers to attack the U.S. Capitol on January 6, charging 6 new individuals who appeared to be members or associates of the right-wing group. One self-described leader of the group, which recruits among military and law enforcement, sent a Facebook message claiming at least 50 to 100 Oath Keepers planned to travel to D.C. with him on January 6th and that they would, quote, make it wild, echoing a comment President Trump made on Twitter rallying supporters to the Capitol. A 21-page indictment alleges the defendants, quote, did knowingly combine, conspire, confederate, and agree with each other and others, known and unknown, to force entry to the Capitol and obstruct Congress from certifying the election of Joe Biden as president in riots that led to 5 deaths and assaults on 139 police. So the 9-person indictment includes 3 already charged, including military veterans. So a few of these are couples, guys. Somebody's 38, 66, 50. The 6 new defendants include siblings, Graydon Young, 54, of Englewood, Florida, and Laura Steele of Thomasville, North Carolina. It also includes married couples, Kelly and Connie Meggs, 52 and 59, of Dunedin, Florida, and Benny and Sandra Parker, 70 and 60, of the Cincinnati area. Kelly Meggs wrote a Facebook message saying Trump's comment that January 6th would be wild meant, quote, he wants us to make it wild. He called us all to the Capitol. Gentlemen, we are heading to D.C. So here is a reporter here on Twitter talking about it. Here's the indictment. But all 6 individuals have been added as co-defendants to a superseding indictment surrounding the group that ascended the Capitol's east steps in military-style stack formation seen in this video. So look, they are lined up. Some are like holding on to each other's backs. That's called stack formation. They are pushing through the crowd and using, they have a leader in the front and then everybody's lined up behind them. So, everybody is talking about how, these militia groups, for so long I've heard people try to explain away the right-wing militia movement as, they're just LARPers, and they're just a bunch of guys who just want to hang out and shoot guns, blah, blah, blah. But the January 6th attack on the Capitol was these guys putting the LARPing into the real world. And even I do not agree with those who want to even characterize the people who attacked the Capitol as LARPers. It fails to be role-playing when you're actually disrupting the government, the functions, the transfer of power, and you're destroying property in the Capitol, and you're beating on police officers. It's no longer clear if Officer Sicknick was killed by blunt force trauma. It appears he may have had a stroke, but it really is hard to believe that he would just have had a stroke if there hadn't been a massive mob of people attacking the Capitol and police officers, including himself. He did text his family that he was maced. So this is something else. I mean, but that is what we have going on the right. Okay, they literally had to show up to the Capitol, plan it. The FBI has all this evidence of them conspiring on Facebook, hilariously enough. And what's the example that we have on the left? You ready for the contrast? Check this out. FBI warned about far-right attacks. Agents arrested a leftist ex-soldier. Let me read that to you again. The FBI warned about far-right attacks. Agents arrested a leftist ex-soldier. Now, what's even worse about this is the guy didn't do anything. They arrested him on the suspicion that he would, because of his social media posts. So right-wing extremists literally have to try to overthrow, coup the government, and kill members of Congress to keep in their white supremacist boy, man boy wonder, Donald Trump. But here we have a left wing. You could call him an extremist. That's fine by me. I mean, this guy went to Syria, to I believe help out with rebels there, to help rebels. He flew out to Seattle to hang out in Chaz. I'm not going to say this guy was just nobody hanging out, but he has no violent criminal record. But let me read some of this. Tallahassee. Shortly after sunrise on January 15th, FBI agents descended with guns drawn on a squat red brick apartment complex here, broke open the door of one of the units and threw in a stun grenade, prompting the frightened property manager to call 911. Inside the apartment, furnished with little besides books and a sign declaring "The revolution is not a party," the agents found their target, a 33-year-old U.S. Army veteran and self-described hardcore leftist who had posted a flyer on social media threatening to attack, quote, "armed racist mobs with every caliber available." A shotgun and handgun were found in his apartment, they said. So the guy had 2 guns and mostly books. Sounds like an extreme leftist. What are you doing with all these books, buddy? The man, Daniel Baker, hardly fit the profile of those who had been expected to cause trouble in the run-up to President Biden's inauguration. After a mob of Donald Trump supporters invaded the U.S. Capitol on January 6th in hope of preventing Biden from taking office, the FBI had warned that far-right extremists were plotting armed marches in Tallahassee and other state capitals, as well as in D.C. But Baker represents the flip side of that threat. As far-right extremist movement wages an assault on American government institutions, experts say an unpredictable battle is brewing, fueling potential. So this is the Washington Post definitely giving a way more deference to the FBI than it deserves. It's ratcheting up and then getting a response and a back and forth, said Steve Chermak, a professor of criminal justice at Michigan State University. I mean, there's like one leftist shooter that we've seen all summer and going into the election, and that was the guy in Portland who shot the Patriot Prayer member. And Donald Trump, in an act which he literally called retribution, had that guy turned into Swiss cheese by U.S. Marshals. Meanwhile, Kyle Rittenhouse gets to walk free, screw off on his house arrest or his bail or whatever, his situation. Doesn't show up to court. We have the Boogaloo cop killer in California, Stephen Carrillo, the Air Force veteran who killed 2 cops in the Bay Area, trying to instigate stuff. He used the Black Lives Matter to rally to try and instigate it, took advantage of it. This is what these people are trying to do. And then, of course, the attack on the Capitol. But they really bury the lead in this story. That I need to find it. I mean, look how far I'm into this story before we can even find the fact that this guy. I mean, they talk about Boogaloo members did show up to the state capitol in Tallahassee. Let's see. With no other significant law enforcement actions, Baker's arrest stands as one of the most dramatic events of that period. He was charged with communicating a threat to kidnap or injure another person. A yoga devotee, an advocate for the homeless who helped out at an arts center, Baker decried both Biden and Trump. Baker, a socialist idealist who volunteered to fight against the Islamic State forces in Syria, also had traveled to Seattle last summer to support protesters for racial justice who briefly claimed an abandoned police precinct and declared their area around an autonomous zone. Yes. Let's see. Yeah, so this guy was worried about right-wing people attacking him and leftists. Public defender Randolph Murrell argued in court filings and during a January 21st hearing that Baker's comments were, quote, the product of the heated political dialogue of the day. They were no different, he said, from online posts by Republican officials telling their followers to, quote, prepare for war or to, quote, take up arms in the run-up to Inauguration Day. Baker's friends said he had a bombastic social media presence that he stepped up to match inflammatory right-wing rhetoric. Okay? This guy hasn't attacked anybody. He hasn't committed a violent crime. He was just suspected that he might. The FBI is arresting him for thought crime. We literally had dozens of Republican state lawmakers at the Capitol attack. Some of them who went inside the Capitol. This is how extreme the right has become, where literal serving lawmakers are attempting an attack on the constitutional functions of our government. And this guy and the FBI finds it that this is who they need to go after in Tallahassee. Guys, this is why many on the left, this is how you can tell people with principles, okay? AOC, other members of the squad, but lots of people on the left, after the Biden administration signaled the possibility of new domestic terror laws and surveillance apparatus on domestic terrorism, said, this is a bad idea. We don't need this. These are people on the left saying this because we know about these institutions. We know about the FBI, the institutional makeup and ideology of the FBI. You think, I mean, there have been multiple reports of by the FBI and other agencies and intelligence agencies about the infiltration of law enforcement and the military by white supremacist, right-wing extremists. What has the FBI done about that? Nothing. They've sat on their hands with it. Nothing at all is what they've done, is the answer. And to expect that they're going to fairly dole out the policing and the surveillance of left-wing and right-wing extremists is a pipe dream. They had this dude on a watch list. They didn't go arrest him out of nowhere just because they just saw his Facebook. Oh, would you look at that? They were watching him. They knew he went to Seattle. They probably knew he went to Syria, to help with the Islamic State. Let's see. Here's somebody who went with him to Syria. Listen to this quote. None of his statement was saying, quote, on Inauguration Day, we're going to go out and hunt down all the right-wingers, said Warren Stoddard, who fought alongside Baker in Syria. He said, quote, we're going to stop people from taking the Florida Capitol. And if no one went to the Florida Capitol, there's nothing to stop. But the FBI agents who had been monitoring Baker's social media posts since October described him as being, quote, on a path toward radicalization. So they're now in the habit of arresting people for being on a path toward radicalization. And the FBI didn't warn the Capitol Police about the impending attack that was openly broadcast on social media. Ugh. Guys, this is insane. This is insane. And this is the clear... I mean, I opened up the show with showing a local example of law enforcement having a clear right-wing ideology and bias. And here with SLO County District Attorney Dan Dow hanging out at secessionist events, palling around with Candace Owens, right? And mischaracterizing, slandering Black Lives Matter activists, because for political reasons, using their power for political reasons. If you don't think the FBI is doing that, if you don't think, intelligence agencies aren't going to use the, any kind of increased funding or power they might get after the Capitol attack to turn that on the left, guess again, man. Guess again, because that's what we're going to see. That's what we're already seeing, and we see it here. It's just that the double standard is outrageous. You should be outraged. And the people on the left, be careful. Be careful. Be careful how you communicate. And I'm not saying this to like censor yourself or be careful about what you say. I'm just saying, like, protect yourself. Protect your communications. Make sure your friends know that this kind of stuff is going on. It's insane. It's insane.